Today's music is so depressing, only focusing on the negative. Death, dying, feeling bad about dying. Where did all the happy songs go? This is of course what people were saying in the 50s. Death rock enthusiast Professor Jelly here. While today's music and by association generation is often stereotyped as being on the frowny side of things, but when it comes down to like kids dying in songs, the heyday has got to be the 50s and 60s. Today we think of this period of music as being the most polished, conservative, upbeat period in its history. I mean, look at this Billboard list from 1964. Jay and the Americans, Dance, 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 Do What Diddy 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 Dum. These are songs that not even the most uptight grandma would object to. But number one this week was a song called Leader of the Pack by the Shangri-Las, which is a song about a girl who's dating this guy from the wrong side of the tracks, and she has to break up with him because he's a thug, and then he gets into a motorcycle wreck and dies. That's the song. Leader of the Pack would go on to become one of the most famous teenage tragedy songs, also known as Death Disc, also lovingly known as splatter platters, which were these styles of teenage death ballads that reached their commercial peak in this late 50s, early 60s time. YouTube will give me a whooping if I try and actually play you some of these songs, so please look them up afterwards. But the subgenre is typified as being very melodramatic, oftentimes with a star-crossed lovers thing going on, heartbreak, rebellion, high school, 50s middle America teenage life, fast cars, no seatbelts. There's usually a spoken word intro or interlude, and rounded out with a healthy dose of sound effects. Leader of the Pack is actually a great example of all these tropes thrown into one song. It starts off with a very Baby Got Back-esque starting dialogue where they're like, "Oh my God, Becky, look at Jimmy's ring." And then the song starts and they meet at a candy store. She loves him because he is sad. But because they're star-crossed lovers, of course, her father says that they have to break up. And after they break up, she's like, "Drive slow." And then he immediately gets into a wreck and dies. After each of the choruses, we of course get the prerequisite Harley being revved up, presumably by the leader of the pack. And for the big wreck, we of course get the big wreck sound effect, just to really try and get across for the people in the back, you know, this guy is dead. Quick unrelated fun fact, the piano on the song is actually played by Billy Joel. Or at least he says it is, which is good enough for me. Another fun fact, when they went out on tour, they had a guy whose job was just to play the motorcycle after each chorus during this. Which is by far the best job in music, period, okay? I played motorcycle, honey. And I really want to emphasize, I like this song. I think it's an excellent piece from the period, but I think that we can also all agree that this is a lot different from some of these preconceived notions that we have about this period of time. And this was not just some one-off, one-hit wonder from the Shangri-Las. These songs were everywhere. There were actually so many of these songs that there are a few different subgenres within this subgenre, such as the vehicular homicide song, which Leader of the Pack would be a great example of. Others, like the song Dead Man's Curve, feature the dangers of street racing, and Ebony Eyes by the Everly Brothers is about an airplane crash. There is also the gunslinger model, where you have country songs like El Paso and Don't Bring Your Guns Into Town that hit upon many of the same themes, but in a country western setting. And of course you have the countless extremely sad folk songs that were brought back into the limelight during this period, like Tom Dooley. There's a few things that get brought up to try and explain the public's fascination with death ballads during this period. Things like changing societal pressures on teenagers at the time. But one of the biggest and most convincing things is the numerous high-profile deaths of several pop stars during this period. In fact, what's considered to be the first teen tragedy song is a little bop called Black Denim Trousers and Motorcycle Boots, which is almost identical to Leader of the Pack, except for this guy apparently doesn't wash his hands very well. This song was released just before the tragic death of James Dean in an auto accident, and shot up the charts immediately after, presumably due to it capturing an emotion that a lot of people were feeling at that time. Eventually these songs were so popular that we started to get death ballad parodies. Of course Leader of the Pack got its own parody, Leader of the Laundromat, Bite of the Detergents, which changes the point of view from a sad girl who's crying over her biker boyfriend who has died to a sad boy who's crying over having to break up with his girlfriend because she does not do laundry very well and all of his shirts come back brown. You cannot make this stuff up if you wanted to. And then she gets hit by a dump truck. One of these songs was called Death Cab for Cutie, which of course got repurposed into the band name Death Cab for Cutie. But the original song was by the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. They live up to their name, I'll just leave it at that. Unfortunately, the Detergents, or even the Bonzo Dog Doodahs, could not keep the style alive, and is usually regarded as ending with the beginning of the British invasion. I also have to imagine that the assassination of JFK also kind of contributed to the end of the car death song market. However, there are a few modern songs that borrow a lot of these tropes. American Pie is a song that famously tells the story The Day the Music Died, which was the tragic plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper. Kisses, Detroit Rock City, is about a fan on his way to a Kiss concert who dies in an auto wreck. And some people would even consider Eminem's Stand to be a modern retelling of this style, with Eminem of course taking the spot of the tragic girlfriend who gets left behind. So while widely forgotten, I think that we would all benefit from looking back on this time of music and seeing how it compares and contrasts to our current landscape. Also, Twisted Sister did a cover of Leader of the Pack. Some people consider this to be the beginning of the end for Twisted Sister's career. Why? This has been Professor Jelly. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe. Also, I guess if you know any more covers of Leader of the Pack, let me know in the comments.